Iron Maiden kick off their albums with some of the best tracks in heavy metal history. So let's go through and rank their opening tracks from worst to best, 17 to 1. So let's do that right now. When you look at Number of the Beast from 1982, and you look at the track and you look at everything on it, and you look at the opening track, and it's Invaders. So number 17 comes in at Invaders with Invaders, and it's, of all the tracks on here, I usually put the disclaimer on my videos like, hey, anything that Iron Maiden does is going to be better than like 99% of what everybody else does. In this case, Invaders might not be the best that this band can offer. It's easily the weakest track on Number of the Beast. You can check out my full review of Number of the Beast from Iron Maiden-a-thon a little while ago. But Invaders is just kind of silly sounding. It's just strong enough to get you going on the album, but you really don't want to do it with this track. It just doesn't do it for me. So Invaders comes in at number 17, and it's a wide margin between 17 and 16. Number 16, we have TAILGUNNER from No Prayer for the Dying from 1990. And TAILGUNNER isn't necessarily a bad track. It does try to call back to, previous Iron Maiden opening tracks and themes that they have, but it just doesn't fit very well, and it doesn't, compared to the rest of these tracks, it's not as strong. This is one of the first Iron Maiden songs I heard after I went and saw them live. I went and got a bunch of CDs, and my friend said to me, hey, TAILGUNNER's pretty badass, how about you listen to it? That wasn't a false statement, but TAILGUNNER is pretty badass, but it's also not one of their best opening tracks. No Prayer for the Dying in general. The first half of the album is a lot stronger than the second half, but TAILGUNNER kicks off the album right, but it's just like a sign of the times for Iron Maiden with their sort of form that they were rounding into after the departure of Adrian Smith. And you can tell on this track, they really, really missed Adrian Smith. They missed Adrian Smith on this whole album, besides Hooks and You, of course, because he has a writing credit on that track. But TAILGUNNER, outside of that, not a very strong track. Coming in at number 15, we have EUTUREAL. And EUTUREAL, it comes off of the Virtual 11 album. It's Blaze Bayley's last album from 1998. And this is probably one of the most maligned Iron Maiden albums out there. A lot of fans don't like this album. They don't like Blaze Bayley. I love Blaze Bayley. I love his vocal style. Obviously, he's not Bruce Dickinson. But this track, in regards to the other opening tracks we have on our list here, it does fall a bit short. It's very energetic and punchy. It's really short compared to the rest of the tracks on this album in particular. But, whether it's Bruce Dickinson singing it or Blaze Bayley singing it, it's a nice way to kick off an album, to kick off a show or whatever, but it's just not as strong as some of these others, and it's not as memorable. I love this track, and that's not to say this is a bad track, but it's just not as memorable, it doesn't pop like some of these other tracks that we're getting to do. So if you're sitting down listening to all these, this one might not stand out to you as much, so who knows? '14, we have the newest Iron Maiden opening track from Senjutsu. We've got the box set up there. You can check that video out. But Senjutsu, it does complete this evolution that Iron Maiden has undergone in their history, where they're sort of moving through these phases of Iron Maiden with their lengthy tracks to open albums now, as opposed to the shorter tracks like they had before. And so you go from this evolution of like 3-minute tracks to 4-minute tracks to 6-minute tracks to an 11-minute track down to a 9-minute track like this one. And Senjutsu, it works as an album opener. It works as an album closer if you wanted to close out Senjutsu as well and rework the set list like that or the track list like that. But it's just not as strong, and it's a little meandering. It's very awesome. It's a tale about barbarians attacking from the hills and everything, and Bruce Dickinson soars with his voice, but it's just not as strong of an opener as they could have had on Senjutsu. '13 comes in with Wildest Dreams from Dance of Death, and Dance of Death is an excellent Iron Maiden album, but it's just that Wildest Dreams, it's just so damn happy sounding. From your Iron Maiden tracks, you don't want super happy sounding songs, but you get like songs like Wasted Years and stuff like that that have a good message, or one of the tracks coming up here on another album that opens an album. But it's just Wildest Dreams. It's strong, but it's not that upper tier, you know? And so this was the first song I listened to after I got my driver's license. I said that to myself. I said, I'm going to listen to this song first. And so you get to Wildest Dreams, which is pretty funny that was the first song I listened to when I got my driver's license. I've heard them play the song live once, and it might be one that they can bring back. It's a nice crowd pleaser. It's a nice singing song that you can get in with the chorus, but in the grand scheme of opening tracks, it doesn't clock in the top 10 or even the best of the bunch. Number 12, we have Satellite 15, The Final Frontier from 2010. And The Final Frontier as a track, if you split it into two, this one obviously both of them are smashed together on the album. Satellite 15 is the more spacey kind of stuff where you get the astronaut who's lost in space and is trying to find his way. And then The Final Frontier, you have the guitar riff kicks in about midway point through the song. So, you know, Satellite 15, The Final Frontier, if you're counting both of them, I like The Final Frontier half more, but they both work well together. As an album opener, it's crazy. I remember when this album came out, Iron Maiden did an excellent job of marketing it and trying to get people to listen to it and get excited, and they started eking out little tiny parts of it, and I was sitting there listening to 15 seconds of a song over and over again, going, oh my god, when's the real thing gonna come out? And then they released the music video, which is excellent. It's really well shot. And so you can, think of it like that when it came out. But as an album opener, there's better songs on The Final Frontier for sure. But The Final Frontier is also one of Iron Maiden's most underrated records out there. A lot of people skip over it or think it's too long or whatever. But The Final Frontier, Satellite 15, decent opening track. Number 11, we have a controversial pick, and I'm going to remind everyone here that this is my list, not yours. So if you get mad about this, sorry. But we have number 11, we have Where Eagles Dare off of Peace of Mind. Now this track, I heard them play it live for the first time on the Legacy of the Beast World Tour. It's pretty awesome there. Worked decently well as a second track after they played Aces High on the opening track for that first run of the tour. But Where Eagles Dare, it's one of those weird tracks where, you know, it's kind of like Wake Up Dead by Megadeth, where it's got like 10% vocals and then 90% just sort of instrumental noodling. This one, there's about 2 minutes of vocals, and then the rest of it is, you know, them soloing and instruments and stuff like that, where that's pretty good. But as an opening track, you really have to think, does this get the job done? And it does get the job done for introducing your new drummer at the time of Nico McBrain after the late Clive Burr left Iron Maiden, but with that awesome drum fill. But it doesn't succeed as well. Like if you were retracking Peace of Mind, you would have a different track, I think, as the opener for this one. You maybe Revelations or The Trooper or something like that over Where Eagles Dare. I think it works a lot better in the middle where you're trying to, you know, get the listener or the crowd, whoever, going back again when you get that drum fill going in. But Where Eagles Dare is still an awesome, awesome Iron Maiden track. We have the top 10. We have Different World from A Matter of Life and Death, the most underrated Iron Maiden album out there. One of my favorites, one that I gave a 10 out of 10 to, because it is that good, goddamn good. And this track, if you ever wondered what it would sound like if Iron Maiden did a Thin Lizzy tune, or vice versa, or whatever, this is Iron Maiden doing Thin Lizzy, because you've got the guitar melodies and you've got the vocal harmonies and all of that with this track. And it's like I said, it's the just happy track where you're sitting there singing about, I don't want to be here. I'm in this new place. It sucks. And then you think, well, maybe this place might not be so bad because it'll get better or whatever like that. And so that's what Different World's about. And to kick off A Matter of Life and Death, which I do think is a little teeny weeny bit of a concept album, you can check more about that in my full review of A Matter of Life and Death from Iron Maiden-a-thon. But this track opens the album in that sort of life area of A Matter of Life and Death, and that's very strange how it does that. But Different World, great track, great opener to a great album for A Matter of Life and Death. Number 9, we have what's going to piss off the Paul Di'Anno wing of Iron Maiden fandom. We have Prowler from the first Iron Maiden album. And now I wasn't alive, obviously, when this album came out, but I just want to feel what it felt like to get that album from the record store, to put it on your turntable, hit the needle, and then just hear Prowler. Because I know obviously there was the Soundhouse tapes and bootlegs before that, but this was the first real professional Iron Maiden sort of experience you could get with a real producer and everything. And so Prowler, just Paul Di'Anno classic, stone cold classic at its best. It's all about, you know, that urban city lifestyle, prowling around in the bushes and all that, chasing after girls. And so Prowler is awesome. It's just that the tracks coming up are so good. It's hard to pick, and this was really hard to pick and hard to not include further down the list, but Prowler is still awesome as an Iron Maiden opening track. Number 8, we have one that's going to upset people because I love this album. It is the X Factor. It is Sign of the Cross from 1995. It is Blaze Bayley's first introduction to Iron Maiden fans. And, you know, this is another one where I wish I could get that experience of listening to for the first time, or get a time machine and go back to 1995 when this album released and just put this album on for the first time. You know, you're going through this whole thing where Iron Maiden is divorced from Bruce Dickinson, basically. It's a dark time for heavy metal. It's a dark time for music. It's a dark time for Iron Maiden fans because, you know, their hero has left and it's getting replaced by this new guy, Blaze Bayley, who you don't know anything about. So, and you hear this track. They very easily could have put Man on the Edge as the opening track for the X Factor, and it would have kicked it off right. It would have kicked it off with a punch, and you would have been like, wow, this is getting off to a great start. But no, you start off with Gregorian chants and an 11-minute song, which was the second longest Iron Maiden song at the time, as the opening track on this album. And I've done the retrack of the X Factor. I'm going to do a video about that, but this would be my closing track on the retrack, but it still works perfectly as an Iron Maiden opening track. Whether it's Bruce singing it or Blaze singing it, it is a masterpiece of Iron Maiden, and it's just fantastic. It's an utter masterpiece. So I don't care if you don't like Blaze Bayley. You got to give this song props, and Iron Maiden loves playing it because they've played it plenty of times since Bruce Dickinson has rejoined the band. So if you don't like Sign of the Cross, sorry, but it's a great, great opener. Number 7, we get the cross of Sign of the Cross, the cross of the Marvel Comics and Iron Maiden with If Eternity Should Fail. And if you've listened to any of Bruce Dickinson's solo records, you'll know this is supposed to be a Bruce Dickinson solo song, but Steve Harris went and he plucked it away and he said, nope, that's Iron Maiden's now. We're going to do this track on the Book of Souls. And it jumped up the rankings because I was listening to all these songs, getting ready to do this list, and I'm sitting there driving and I'm rocking the F out about If Eternity Should Fail. It was supposed to be way higher than this on the list, or way lower than this on the list, but it just kept bumping up and bumping up and bumping up until it got to this point, and I was like, I can't put it above the final 6 here, but at 7, this track rules. This track is fantastic off of another Iron Maiden album that's pretty criminally underrated, where people skip over the Book of Souls because it's too long, like it is with the Final Frontier. Some of the other albums get more love, but do not forget about If Eternity Should Fail and about the Marvel section of it. Apparently Bruce Dickinson was reading a Doctor Strange comic, and the phrase If Eternity Should Fail came up, and it's an excellent theme for a song of what happens if eternity isn't eternity, and that's what this track is all about. Number 6, we have Be Quick or Be Dead, the fastest Iron Maiden song out there, the most angry Iron Maiden song out there off of Fear of the Dark. And this is just Iron Maiden going, hey, wait, let's do speed metal. Let's do thrash metal. Screw these kids that are doing it right now. Let's do it better than them. And they did it for one track off of Fear of the Dark as the opener. It is angry, it's loud, it's fast, and it gets you done and it gets out. And it's just Fury and Iron Maiden, and Fear of the Dark is another underrated album. A lot of people don't give that album its credit because they're like, oh, it's the title track and that's it. No. It might have 2 or 3 too many songs on it. They should have cut some of them down, made them into B-sides or something like that. But this album is hard-hitting. This track is hard-hitting. You don't want to forget about Be Quick or Be Dead. Go listen to it if you haven't listened to it in a while, and it'll melt your brain, because Be Quick or Be Dead is just that awesome. We have the top 5, and we have a track that I'm sure a lot of people love, The Wicker Man off of Brave New World. And this track, I'm sure, got a lot of people back into Iron Maiden. I know there's plenty of people out there that hold Brave New World up to a super high regard because of what it did. It brought back Bruce Dickinson. It brought back Adrian Smith. It brought back heavy metal, basically. We got from the doldrums of the 1990s where metal was dying because of grunge, and then we got nu metal, the friggin' worst music genre on the face of the earth. Sorry, Slipknot fans, but... And then we get back to Brave New World, and we get Iron Maiden reuniting, and then we get Brave New World with Iron Maiden proving that this is not just a nostalgia thing. It's not just a nostalgia tour. We're not cashing in. We are cashing in tons of money because people are coming to see us because it's awesome, but we're putting the artistic effort into a new album, and The Wicker Man shows that. And I'm not sure if this album or this whole thing would have succeeded without this track. This track proved that Iron Maiden was back in a big way, and so The Wicker Man, when they played it on the Legacy of the Beast World Tour, they put it in the middle of the set as opposed to the start of the set, and it friggin' killed. People were going crazy when they started playing the opening riff of this track, and so it combines that evil side of Iron Maiden, that horror movie side, and then you get, just the soaring vocals and choruses of The Wicker Man, and so it doesn't get much better than this except for these next 4 songs. Number 4, I'm cheating a little bit because I didn't know how to classify this. I didn't know if it was either like, do I pick one or the other, or do I just put them both together? And I said, hell, it's my list. I'm going to do what I want. We're going to go with the Ides of March / WRATHCHILD, or off of Killers. And, the Ides of March by itself probably wouldn't be as high on the list if it was there. WRATHCHILD I don't think would be as either. I know WRATHCHILD is a classic. It's great to hear in the studio. I hate hearing it live. It's a waste of time when they play it live. It's a waste of a slot on the tour, but that's just my opinion. It's a 3-minute song. I'm seeing Iron Maiden. I want to see the 6-minute songs. I want to see everything, But the Ides of March and WRATHCHILD put together, when you slam them together and you get the instrumental leading into it, it's almost heavy metal perfection, really. It is fantastic. It is utterly great, and it just gets you going. And WRATHCHILD is just heavy metal thunder incarnate. It is just what you would give to somebody. I would give Painkiller to somebody if they asked me what heavy metal was, but maybe I'd be like, yeah, you listen to Painkiller, but also listen to WRATHCHILD too. Just slap that on the end of it or something like that. But Ides of March, WRATHCHILD, great opening track that really set the bar for Iron Maiden and heavy metal going forward. Whew. We've got the top 3, and it was hard to pick these, but I'm going to go with Caught Somewhere in Time at number 3 because you have Iron Maiden coming off of Power Slave, off of the World Slavery Tour, like the biggest concert tour in heavy metal history. And they go back in the tank and they take a break for a year, because normally it was, every year was an album. They took a break for an entire year, took off 1985, went back into the studio in 1986 and brought us Somewhere in Time, my favorite Iron Maiden album of all time. But Caught Somewhere in Time combines all the best parts of the 80s of culture and everything. You've got like the Blade Runner influences, you've got the guitar synths, you've got heavy metal, you've got Bruce Dickinson vocals, you've got the speediness of the track. It's just the right amount of time spent. It's like the right run time. It just has everything is perfect about this track when it fits into the time period that you're looking at it in. And then when they play it live, they play the friggin' Blade Runner theme in front of it. So if you don't love that, I don't know what you're watching Iron Maiden live for. But Caught Somewhere in Time, absolutely fantastic. The lyrical content is amazing. How it changes from Caught Somewhere in Time throughout the whole chorus to caught in two minds at the end. And so the person who's been time traveling screws up. And it's just utterly fantastic. I love this track. I cannot wait for the Future Past tour when they play this live. I hope they do. If they don't, it's going to be so disappointing. But they have to. They have to play at least this one live on that. So can't wait for them to play Caught Somewhere in Time live. Number 2 and number 1, we had an excellent choice here between two wonderful, amazing Iron Maiden tracks. One is just, they're both so great. They both want to make me want to run through walls. But number 2, we've got Aces High, especially when you put the Churchill speech at the beginning of it. It makes me want to go fight Nazis in Britain because, it's just that powerful of a track. It's just that awesome to hear Aces High and to hear about all the Spitfires and all the the Battle of Britain going on. And it's just so epic in feel, and it's short, but it's so speedy and punchy, and it makes you just want to, like, throw up the horns and mosh and just scream out the vocals with Bruce alongside of him. There's a reason why they open a lot of concerts with this one. They open the World Slavery Tour, the Ed Hunter Tour, the Summer Back in Time World Tour, the Legacy of the Beast World Tour. They closed out the second leg with this track. But anytime you see that Spitfire, you hear the Churchill speech, you know it's going to go down. So it's an Iron Maiden classic for a reason. They opened the encore of the Made in England World Tour with this too. So anytime you can do it, you can hear this song. It's fantastic. I can't say enough. I can't praise Aces High enough, but there has to be a number one, and it is Moonchild. And just Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is a special album for me personally. I love these types of albums that start one place, end in one place, and go in a big circle with the Seven Deadly Sins, Seven Ways to Win poem at the beginning and the end of Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. And Moonchild, I remember the first time I heard it. I remember where I was. I was walking at in between classes. It wasn't in between classes. I was just walking around in high school on my break with my headphones in, like, taking a break from class, I guess, and I heard the opening of Moonchild. I heard that guitar, I heard the lyrics, the vocals, and I had to sit down. I just sat on the floor, and I was just listening to it in awe of Moonchild. And anytime I hear this track now, you got to crank it. Any Iron Maiden playlist, you got to throw this one on there. Any playlist in general, you got to throw this one on there. From showing people what heavy metal is, what Iron Maiden is, you got to throw Moonchild on there. It is the pinnacle of Iron Maiden's opening track style. It is the pinnacle of Iron Maiden. Really, this is one of their best tracks. It just tells a story. It's so evocative with the language and everything that Bruce Dickinson gives. The lyrics are so great. The guitars are great. The keyboards, everything about it. It takes what Somewhere in Time did with the synths and adds keyboards and strips away the synths, but makes it still sound just huge. And that's what Moonchild really does. If you want more Iron Maiden content, here's the playlist for Iron Maiden-a-thon. You can go through it and look at all of my album by album reviews here. Check it out.